Hello and welcome to episode 250, can you believe it, of Checkpoint Chat. My name is Alessandro Barbosa. I'm joined, as always, by Matthew Figuera.
It's been such a long time that we've both forgotten how to record.
Decades. Actual decades.
No, legitimately. It's that thing of, it hasn't been that long. It's been a couple weeks. It's episode 250. We've done this 249 times before. Do you think we'd have it down?
Can you believe it?
But then when it comes to recording, it's like, hang on, do I have this set up? Have we hit record? Do we have the windows in the right place?
You do a Windows updates and suddenly your microphones don't work. It's a good time.
But I asked you, I was like, can you see my screen? Yes. You're like, yes, I can see your OBS. I'm like, hang on. Do I always share my OBS or what do I share to you? Like, I couldn't remember which view you have of this podcast on your side.
It just shows what happens. You don't do something, regularly for a long time, and your body like loses that muscle memory so quickly, or memory of it, I guess, so quickly. Except for riding a bike. Like, you can pick that shit up like 10 years later and you'll be like, yeah, I remember this.
Why? Why is riding a bike the one thing you always forget? I mean, it's not the only thing. There are other examples, but riding a bike is the saying. It's like riding a bike. It literally is.
It's like it's that skill that you learn once and you never have to relearn it. It's nuts. I don't know why. Maybe because it's so simple. Because at the end of the day, it's just balance. Like, your body doesn't forget balance. Like, otherwise, how would you walk? Yeah, but you know what I mean?
Riding a bike is this weird thing. When you're a kid, or however old you are, when you're learning to ride a bike, when people say it's easier the faster you go, you're like, hold up. That doesn't make any sense. Because obviously, it's the world's got the thing
learning. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
sorry.
Got you.
When you're learning it, because obviously I can't remember what the scientific term's called, but like when that wheel's spinning, it's the faster it is, the more like, balanced it is, whatever.
Yeah, the more like, the more rigid it is or whatever.
But when you've got no balance, you have no idea how to launch. Like, what do you mean? I've got to go fast. I can't even go slow.
It's like, I don't want to go fast because I feel unstable. Of course.
I can't even go slow.
It makes total sense that you wouldn't want to go fast. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So
podcasting, not like riding a bike. Forget the stuff. No,
podcasting is definitely not like riding a bike. It is way more complicated, and you lose your bearings far more easily. And that kind of sucks. But at the end of the day, we still can't do weekly shows. So sporadic it's going to be.
It's still going to be sporadic. And I just want to point out that 249 episodes in, and I still have that fear of losing an episode, or that I didn't hit record.
Hasn't happened yet. well, the only time it did happen, did we technically lose it? It was that first one, the very first one we did. I don't even think we technically lost that. I think that was just like
it was a burner
bad
episode.
yeah. Everyone has those. I've listened to podcasts where they say like the first 10 episodes they record they never put out, and I'm like, geez, that sounds like a lot of
work for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So
we're like episode 0, let's go. That's the burner one. And episode 1's the actual launch.
No, we are definitely not going to do that. I have to say, just on the topic of like not knowing how to record anymore, since starting this episode and now, I have reduced my recording volume on Audacity from 100% to 50. So the sound quality at the beginning might be a bit weird.
You were coming through a little bit muffled on my side, but I thought that's just Discord doing its thing. But
well, I mean, I might still be coming through muffled to you, because I think the volume on Windows is way too high now. But I'm offsetting that with like Audacity instead. So I am still tweaking it though.
That's fine.
As I go, I'm just watching this thing like absolutely clip like every few moments here, and that is not ideal.
But you know what they say, the first 250 episodes are the burner episodes. You got to get that out.
100%.
Then you can launch the podcast.
100%.
we made it. Shit, it took us like 6 years, but we can finally launch the podcast properly.
We can finally put out episode 1. Can you believe it?
Thank God. Season 1, episode 1. Let's go.
Okay, I've just realized that because now I've dived into Windows settings while we're recording, and turns out the Audacity recording volume is actually the Windows recording volume because it edited what is in my control panel. So that's cool. So I was counteracting them by increasing one and decreasing the other. They were actually just the same slider. Good to know. Good to know.
That's classic DJ Khalid. Congratulations, you played yourself.
Yeah, I definitely played. Well, yeah, Microsoft played me, and then I played myself, and then.
Oh my god.
Speaking of podcasts, I don't normally like talk about other podcasts here, but I've been listening to a podcast series. You said your sister and brother actually listened to it as well, and I just want to mention it because it is sort of like gaming adjacent, or at least the episode I listened to that got me hooked onto it was very gaming adjacent. It's called Darknet Diaries. Yeah, apparently it's been going on for quite some time, which is great for me because I have like 150 odd episodes to catch up on. And apparently the cadence of releasing has like slowed down significantly, so good time for me. But there is a two-parter like story. It's like split over 2 episodes, called Xbox Underground, and this is the first like episode I listened to because someone at work just mentioned it, and I was like, that sounds really interesting. And it is such a cool story that I think if you are even remotely interested in the sort of Wild West that was console hacking back in the PS3, Xbox 360 days, like you should listen to it because it's a fascinating story about a group of teenagers really who stumbled upon like Xbox dev kits that Microsoft was just throwing out into a recycling facility where the one guy lived, and that was like the first domino in like this massive, chain of events that ended up with them essentially having complete access to like 240 studios around the world. Being able to play any games. They played Gears of War 3 before it was out. They played Halo. They somehow got plans to like an Apache helicopter because it was being used in a game, and that alerted the CIA. And it's fucking wild where the story goes, purely because Microsoft like cut corners on like disposing of these dev kits and allowed people to. I mean, at one point, one of these dudes like literally hacks his way into Microsoft's headquarters and steals a prototype of what would become the Xbox One. It's nuts. It's an absolutely insane story. It's really, really interesting to listen to. It gets really sad at times because like some of the obviously consequences of what they did is not so great. But like a riveting listen either way. Like if you're going to listen to one episode from the series and none else, it's like those two. It's really, really cool.
I'm pretty sure, I think it was my brother, it might have been my sister, and I know my brother's recommended Darknet Diary episodes. I think he recommended that Xbox One to me as well. A lifetime ago. It's an old episode, I think. I just haven't gotten around to listening to it.
It's like episode 30 or something. So it's one of his earlier ones.
I haven't listened to it yet, but I will now.
It's fantastic. There's a whole trio of other ones it's more to do with like political hacking, which I found quite fascinating, but that Xbox One was like top tier. It's like really, really interesting.
You've given me enough info about that podcast episode that I can pretend that I have listened to it.
That is true. You could tell your brother, "Oh yeah, I love this part." What a great
listen!
Damn.
The part about the Apache helicopter, it's wild. Can't believe.
I think what caught me though is that I sort of like tangentially remember some of that stuff happening. Like I remember the name Xbox Underground because that was their like collective name, and I distinctly remember, because Gears of War 3, I'd already started covering games by that point, so I remember stories about like, oh, there was this leak and people played it and this and that. So like, it was weird to have these like sort of flashbacks to like, okay, that like fills in the blanks of that story because you didn't really know too much about it. That was cool. It was a cool episode, and I think it's really well put together as a podcast because it's like formatted like a true crime drama, so it's very riveting.
I've listened to another episode. I can't for the life remember what it was, but yeah, great podcast series.
Yeah, very, very well produced and edited and researched as well. The presenter does make a few like weird errors which don't really make much sense because like he has really good technical knowledge, but like he like especially in this episode he misnames games in very strange ways. Like
yeah, but
like,
it's only episode 30. It needs 250 episodes before the actual podcast comes out.
It's
so
true.
It's cool.
He's still 100 away. So yeah, no, we got to cut him some slack. Got to cut him some slack there. Yeah. Anything else you've been up to these past couple of weeks aside from freezing?
Oh, look, it hasn't been freezing. It's just April's been, and I've heard from people who actually live in the UK, born and bred here, that have said April's just the Wild West of weather. Like,
oh, really?
And legitimately, it happened the other day at the office where look out the window, shit, you know, like sun's out. 5 minutes later, clouds. 10 minutes later, hailing. 10 minutes later, sun's out. And I was like, what is going on here? This makes no sense.
It's like 4 seasons in a day.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we joke about Cape Town like, haha, every season I've lived through it now. Cape Town's not joking. Okay, that shit happens.
Fuck, no,
I don't know.
I hate that. I'd rather like, especially because you're traveling to work every day. You like, you know, you have to take a jacket and hope that it is enough for the day.
I've learned.
I don't envy you.
I've learned, and Lenska, bless her sweet, believably a hot heart, because Lenska gets cold very quickly. Okay, but she forgets this. So often she'll turn to be like, what's the weather like? Do you think I should wear a jacket today? I'm like, if anyone should wear a jacket, it's you. Like, not me, not anyone else. You will put on a jacket in summer because you're cold. Like, why do you even ask? Just take the jacket with you. But I've learned now, it's not hot enough to not wear a jacket yet. We're getting there. When we're in summer, it's fine, but I always just have a jacket and I can always take it off. It's cool.
It's funny, Shani is quite similar to Lenska in that she'll be like, she won't ask her to take a jacket. She's got to the point where she always takes the jacket by default. But the problem is she gets so cold that often the jacket isn't enough. So like, she'll take a K-way, we'll go to the movies, she'll be in the movies, she'll be shivering. And I'm like, how is this possible? I'm in a t-shirt. She's like, aren't you cold? I'm like, no.
The same. She's freezing. On like,
I don't get it.
Pretty warm day. Lenska's boiling the kettle. I'm like, oh, you're making a coffee? No, I'm making a hot water bottle. I'm like, why?
What?
What's going on here? It's not that cold. Like, come on.
We need someone to explain this. Is this like an actual thing where like women are, you know, they have a lower body temperature than men? Like, is it? It can't be just coincidence. Surely not.
No.
Message the show. Let us know.
I think it's might also have to do with... I could
Google it, but I don't want to.
I don't want to Google it, but it might also have to do with like insulation.
I mean, could be.
Very well insulated person. I have body hair. I
mean, to be fair, but you see, that doesn't make sense again, because like women like this is an actual thing. Women in general have higher percentage of body fats, or you know, than men because like of their physiology. So an acceptable range for body fat for women is much higher. Well, not much, but higher than men usually for a healthy range. So like you would think that would mean they would retain a higher body temperature, but
I need a scientist to tell me what is better at keeping heat, body fat or body hair.
Hair. One's good at insulating air around you,
and the one's good
one is good at keeping your core temperature high. I don't know. Listen, this is why I dropped biology in grade 9.
Because you were that person who had your hand up in class saying, sir or ma'am, tell me, body hair or like, why are you in my
like,
class?
Please drop the subject.
Don't come back in grade 10. Just get out of here.
I was the one in that class trying not to fall asleep half the time. You would never catch me dead studying to be a doctor, because no, never.
Thanks. No thanks.
Not to me. I would never. I don't know if you remember much about biology, but I have this distinct memory of like studying for an exam, either in grade 8 or grade 9. I can't remember. We were doing like the anatomy of like, I don't know, fucking insects or something. And I had like this diagram of a cricket with like 20 labels on it, labeling like the thorax and this and that. I'm like, what? Who cares? Like, why? Not me. Someone cares, and that's cool. It's cool that they are
got
studied.
bug specialists
cool.
around the world listening like,
fuck this podcast.
Yeah,
like,
I can't believe I gave this podcast the light of day. Throw it into the bin.
If you love that shit, that's awesome. My brain does not work that way. Parrot fashion learning is not my vibe.
You have bug enthusiasts not listening, but let's just imagine an alternate reality. We have our primary demographic as a gaming podcast is bug enthusiasts. I don't know how this cross section happened. They're out here wondering why you and I give such a shit about just gaming stuff.
Like, I mean, that's fair.
FPS, yawn, RPG, yawn. Who needs to remember this stuff, please?
Cloud, who, Aerith, what?
Whatever. Sephiroth, saving the planet.
Yeah.
Like, please, man.
No.
Yawn.
No. Can you even name all the muscles in Cloud's arm? Bet you can't.
No, but I can name like.
Do you know the anatomy of a caterpie? No. Fuck you.
I don't know how we got here, but I love it.
Professor Oak would not listen to this podcast. That's all I know.
100% would not listen to it.
Yeah. You know who will listen to it?
Who?
People listening to this podcast, I don't know, because they're like, video games. Hey, I was going to say video games, so that wouldn't have worked at all. Like, had to drag that out somewhere.
Waiting, like, you don't listen to this. Just pause. Like, yes, you must have a pearl of an answer.
I didn't really. Not today.
You don't listen to this
it's
podcast.
It's a Friday evening. I'm too tired.
People listening right now, like, wow. This is like that Pizza Hut sign, which I wish I had a photo of it. I'm sure you saw it.
Pizza Hut sign. What?
When you visited, was there a Pizza Hut sign down the road from us? It said buy one, get one.
Oh yes, you pointed it out to me because you said it was like so ridiculous that existed. Buy one, get one. Did they?
Yeah.
No.
It obviously was meant to say like buy one, get one free, but the free was missing. So most literal sign ever. I loved it. Buy one, get one. Whoa.
I think I saw it on the bus back because it's not actually like down. It's like close to where you were, but. I remember you pointed it out, and it was real funny.
Buy one, get one. No, listen to this podcast.
I mean,
people who listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. Can listen to this podcast and get one, don't know, in your ear holes. I don't know.
Nice.
Video games.
Love it.
I've actually been playing a lot these past couple of weeks, and the games haven't been Final Fantasy Rebirth, which is a right shame.
A right shame.
Because that game's good. Matty is nearly done with it, and then we'll probably have a big podcast. We're not going to wait till I'm done with it because then it will be 2025. So,
100%.
Yeah. But I have been playing a bunch of new releases. New-ish, I guess. So neither of them are out, technically.
No.
One's in early access, one will soon be in early access. So let's start with the one in early access. I've been playing a bunch of No Rest for the Wicked, which is... I've come to realize is a pretty bad name for this game because no one can ever remember it. Like, you can't remember it.
I cannot remember it. Every time we've spoken about recording this weekend, I've said, that Moon Studios game.
Yeah. It's also just such a mouthful. It's like whenever I tell people I'm playing this, I'm like, No Rest for the Wicked. And they're like, what? And I'm like... It's like, did you play Ori? They're like, yes. It's like the other game from those guys. Like,
the better name would have been Wicked : No Rest. Hire me.
You see, I would have taken that any day.
100%.
Yeah, this is made by them folks at Moon Studios, creators of Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Mm-hmm. And no, they are not owned by Microsoft, as seems to be common perception. I recall years ago, I think just after they finished Will of the Wisps, it's a weird word. They mentioned that their next game was going to be like an action RPG. And I think most people immediately took that to think, okay, cool, they're making a Diablo-like, because ARPGs, that's what you think about.
Yeah.
No Rest for the Wicked is that, but it is the most non-Diablo-like form of this that I've ever played. It is definitely a mishmash of the loot-driven exploration of a Diablo, but then the combat and exploration of a Dark Souls, which makes
Talking
for a
my
very...
language.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is like 100% your type of game. It's a very interesting combination of ideas, and so far from what I've played, I think it works incredibly well. It is very challenging. If you're watching the footage here, you can see the sort of DNA of the Dark Souls, where like every encounter is dangerous, even if it's just a random mob or something like that. And when you encounter like two enemies, that becomes like very problematic to deal with.
Yeah. This is just the footage from when the game was first shown by IGN a few months ago.
Yeah. This is what I've played. This is like the first sort of area before you get to the game's like hub, which is like a city, a big sprawling city. And yeah, it gives you a good sense of the sort of game that you're going to be playing for who knows how many more hours. It's very slow, very methodical, but it's also got these sensibilities of like exploration that I think a Diablo doesn't have. Like Diablo works in a very set map. You click on something, you go there. If you click somewhere where the character can't go, he just kind of like runs to a wall and stops.
Yeah.
You have direct control of your character in this game. So you're moving around with the joystick, whatever, and you've got sort of like platforming control as well. So he'll jump, like your character will jump off ledges and stuff like that, but there will be purposefully placed ledges so that you can land on different levels and explore like different areas to find secrets and stuff. You can also like shimmy against walls to find like hidden passages, which is pretty easy. They're pretty easy to hide given the like top-down perspective or isometric perspective of the game. So it's very similar to like a Souls game in that regard, where you're kind of like the world is there for you to pick apart. There's also elements like you don't have bonfires. You have these like areas where you can save your game. You create like a checkpoint, and then you've got shortcuts that lead you closer back to that checkpoint. You don't lose experience when you die, but your weapons do take like a durability hit every time you die. So there's like, there's a bit of balancing in the way, so it doesn't feel as punishing when you die like in a Souls game, but also like the combat makes up for that in its challenge, because it also has to be very loot driven, which I don't think a Souls game is, but a Diablo is. You get tons of loot from enemies. You can do things like upgrade weapons, enchant weapons. You can slot different runes into slots on your weapons that then unlock alternative attacks, which is quite interesting. So you've got your standard attack, and then you hold down a button, and you've got like a radial menu of like 4 button presses that can each be special attacks, and then you can customize those on a weapon by slotting these runes in. So you can give yourself like a spell that you can cast, or like a area of effect, sword swipe or something like that. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I like the weapon enchantment system. It's quite interesting. In an RPG, you usually have like color grading on your different rarities of weapons. I think Diablo's like blue, yellow, orange, and green, something like that. Anyway, so this one works in a similar way, but when you enchant a weapon, you actually have the ability to slot into like 3 different not rarities, but 3 different classes. So you can get like blue, which enchants your weapon. It gives it like stat buffs, but removes some of your rune slots. So you have to trade like raw damage output or the potential for like really good rolls for like actual abilities that you can equip or gems that you can equip. But sometimes you can enchant a weapon and it becomes like plagued, I think it's called, where you will have really good buffs on it, but you'll have one really massive negative debuff that you can like decide whether you want to put up with or not. But once you enchant a weapon, you can't unenchant it. Like you've just got to roll the dice on that and hope that it rolls something that you deem, like usable.
Yeah.
And then you've got like legendary weapons that you can only find. You can't enchant like a legendary weapon. It's like a cool risk reward system that, I've only just seen it, but I want to see more of it and want to see like how much loot do you actually get that encourages you to enchant things, or not take the risk at all with this thing. So if you're watching the footage now, there's like a massive boss fight. Please tell me if that looks like Ludwig from
100%.
Bloodborne. Yeah, 100%. He's got a moveset very similar to Ludwig. The boss, listen, I died to this boss like twice before I beat him, and again, it comes down to like understanding that this game is like stamina management and patience. And once that clicks in your brain, you kind of understand this game. The big criticism I have right now is, can you spot where the stamina bar is?
It's
like
on screen, but it's very little.
It's like around your character, which is like, I don't understand why they chose to do that, because firstly it's a very dark green that they've used for the stamina bar, and while I'm like rolling around and like avoiding this enemy, I can't tell how much stamina I have left. So a lot of the times I'm leaving a lot of stamina on the table because I don't know how much I have, so I'm just not going to take the risk. So that needs to be by the health bar. Like I just don't understand why. That's a pretty tried and tested way to represent that that data. So I don't get why it's around your player. It's the same that goes for the poise bar. The red thing around your character is their poise, similar to Sekiro. So you can have like your stance break or not, depending on how many hits you take. And that's also like, I can't see that information when I need it. So the game's in early access, so I'm sure they're taking a ton of feedback from players, and like that would be my up there biggest criticism is like move that bar somewhere else. It's incomprehensible to have it there.
Give players the option. Like maybe
that too.
Maybe some people want to see it on their character because that's where their eye is. Like I don't know, but then make it brighter.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Sometimes you're watching a character a lot, you don't want to like glance up at a bar and see. That's probably their rationale for having it there. But I just think it's, with the way the camera is already, quite drawn out from your character and how small that UI, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not at all saying you're wrong. I think that's like the reasoning behind it, but on paper, it makes sense, right? Like, no, the eyes there, but then in action, or in practice, I can imagine there's a boss fight happening. There's a lot of shit happening on screen. How do you keep an eye on what's going on with your stamina? Like that's when it is helpful to have it completely separate. Like, on the top, I can just glance and know, okay, like I do or don't have stamina.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's like the one thing I would definitely want changed. Other than that, I've only played 4 or 5 hours around there, and I'm still figuring out some of the game systems. Like I'm in this main town now called Sacrament, and it is very confusing to navigate. So I'm just like picking up side quests and stuff like that. It's strange. The game's billed as like Moon Studio says you can play this game offline and solo. It definitely has multiplayer aspects to it. But then you've got the system that is like sort of like, daily and weekly bounties. So I'm like, how does that work within a solo context? Also, I really hate that you can only take one daily bounty at a time. You can only set one active at a time, which is like, I hate, like Destiny does the exact opposite, where you go and fetch your dailies. You just like, you go and grab them all, and then you go out into the world and complete them all, and then you have to come back and, turn them in. But if I can only have one at a time, I've got to like go do that one, come back, go do another one, come back. That seems a bit silly to me. So
I had no idea this game had multiplayer.
Yeah, definitely has multiplayer. I mean, I think an ARPG nowadays has to have multiplayer or some sort of co-op element to it. So curious to see how that works. I haven't seen other players or anything, so I don't know. Game looks gorgeous, as you would expect. Looks really good. Got really good character designs. Like reminds me a lot of like Dishonored. It's got that sort of look, very over exaggerated like character features and stuff like that. I'm curious to see more. The setup for the game is very medieval, there's a plague, there's bad people who are in charge, there's,
Bad guys.
that's pretty much the vibe I've got,
Your early
yeah,
access
cool.
period, how long is it? Is it the first act, or do you not know?
I don't know. I have no idea. I actually meant to look that up the other day because I think it's quite substantial. I think there's like quite a lot to play. But yeah, it doesn't make clear at the beginning. Yeah, okay. I'm not sure. So yeah, nice. It's cool. It's out in early access on PC. There's no firm release date on like a 1.0 version. I bet it. Yeah, I don't think it'll be this year.
No, I think.
But yeah,
with games like this, just looking at other early access games that have gone on to be successful, launch window, it's like at least a year, if not more, before things actually get put out. Maybe it won't come out of early access. You got games that sit in early access for like a decade.
I mean, Baldur's Gate was in early access for like 3 years or something like that. It was ages. So yeah, I mean, they're going to be tinkering as much as they can, taking as much feedback as they can. And I think the game I'm playing today is going to be significantly different to the one that eventually launches. So yeah,
I'm definitely going to wait.
Game's good.
It looks right up my alley, but I'm definitely going to wait for final release, which will be my approach with the next game you're playing, that you're going to talk about.
That I kind of have played, and that I definitely finished what was there because there wasn't that much. But I got access to the Hades 2 technical test.
Nice.
So I think it's still ongoing as far as I can tell, but this is like a very limited test that's taking place just before the game goes into early access, probably around June. So yeah, what's on offer here is basically the game's first area. Now, if you've played Hades before, you'll know that there were 4 areas.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
Tartarus, Styx, the other place, I don't know what it's called, and then the like rat place. I don't know what they were called.
Land of the Rats.
Yeah, it was like there was like 4 areas and then final boss. So you'll know that these areas are all comprised of like a series of randomized rooms, sometimes mini bosses, and then an eventual boss fight that, leads you to the next area. So there's the first area and the first boss, essentially, that I got to play. But there's a lot of content that was on display here. So first and foremost, you play as Millinois. Listen, they say it in the game. It sounds very elegant. Millinois. I don't know. She is the sister of Zagreus, who's the protagonist in the first game. She was not born during the first game. She kind of is born after the events of the first game. I'm being as vague as possible. So this takes place somewhat like 20 years, if years even are a concept at this point, after the first game. And the conceit is that the Titan Kronos has basically usurped the underworld from Hades, and Hades and Zagreus are kind of missing, or have been taken by Kronos. And Millinois, yes, I'm gonna butcher it the whole episode. She was like, this happened when she was a child, and she was kind of taken in by some friends of Hades and the families that lived in the underworld, and she's been training her whole life to basically take on Kronos and reclaim the underworld.
Nice.
So instead of breaking out of the underworld, you are kind of breaking in.
That's really cool.
To get back there, but you're taking alternative routes, so it's not just the order of areas in reverse. You know what I mean? That would kind of be strange.
You start with the rat room.
Yeah, could you imagine? Jesus. This is 100% like Hades. It moves like Hades. It looks like Hades. It functions at a like design level just like Hades, but it has so many cool small tweaks that make it stand out as like a sequel. It sort of feels like it's going to be tough to go back to play Hades now that you've played this. That's the impression I got. So the biggest change, I think, is you'll notice a mana bar above your health. That is like, it's called just magic. And instead of you just having a standard and heavy attack, you now have standard attack, heavy attack, and then a spell attack, which is like a standard attack, well, at least for now, regardless of what weapon you choose. It is just a like area of effect ensnaring trap that basically immobilizes enemies to that area for a limited time. And then you can upgrade it with all sorts of boons where like you can make it explode, or you can make it follow you. You can do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Magic comes into play in these new things called Omega attacks. So each of your attacks you can hold down the button and channel it, and that turns it into its like Omega form and burns magic to use. So, for example, the sort of staff that you start with, you can fire off a like vertical and backwards attack, projectile attack, if you hold down for your Omega ability. Likewise, your spell, if you hold it down, instead of just ensnaring enemies, that area of effect will like explode and damage enemies.
Yeah.
And each of these effects has different magic costs associated with them. The cool thing is that your magic bar replenishes when you enter a room. So you only have to manage your magic during each room that you're in.
Yeah.
So you're not having to be like, okay, I'm going to save all my magic for the boss at the end and not use it, during the run. You're fully encouraged to make use of these abilities as much as you can. It also opens up cool opportunities then with boons, because your boons from the other gods aren't just upgrading your standard attacks. You'll sometimes have opportunities to be like, your Omega attack now does this, but it costs this much more. Or your standard attack does this, making it so much more powerful, but every time you use it, you're also expelling magic.
Yes.
So it creates this really cool complex wrinkle of like, it's another resource to manage, but also another resource for you to exploit in creating ridiculous builds, which I'm almost certain will happen, especially with the inclusion of additional guards for you to get boons from.
Yes.
It's really, really good. And again, it's why I say now going back to Hades is going to feel almost like a step back in terms of complexity. It makes the combat sing in a completely different way, and I really, really like it. And it's very easy to get a hold of as well, because fundamentally you're playing Hades, you've just got this extra element on top, which makes it exciting again to relearn, but it's not like overwhelming. Maybe for new players, I might suspect it might be slightly overwhelming.
Yeah,
but
a lot of information to take in.
Yeah, tons of information to take in. So that's really cool. There's a whole bunch of new gods. There's like Hestia, who's like the goddess of fire. You've got Hephaestus, who's like god of the anvil, so he gives you like explosive abilities. Listen, you've got
all the good
Apollo.
ones in the first game.
Yeah, they got to really pull from the B grade like gods here. You've got Apollo, who gives you light abilities, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then you've got returning ones like Poseidon, Aphrodite. Yeah, Aphrodite was there.
Who was the goddess of the wine dude? I can't think now.
Dionysus?
That's it, yeah.
I think it's Dionysus. I didn't see him. I saw Zeus.
Yeah.
There's some cool ways that some characters have been recontextualized as well. So Artemis now isn't a god that will give you a boon. She's actually a very good friend of the main character and someone that you seemingly have had contact with for a long time. And she kind of takes the place of Thanatos here, where she'll pop up every now and then and like challenge you to kill a bunch of enemies. And it's like slightly different, but it's like sort of the same vibe, you know what I mean? There's also like new characters that introduce whole new mechanics, like this spider that you'll come across, who's like sort of like a merchant, and you'll get the choice between 3 garments. And that will change your appearance, but it will also give you armor, which obviously blocks damage, but will give you an ability so long as the armor is still active. So once the armor is finished, your clothing like breaks. So you'll lose that ability. So you're encouraged to kind of like not take damage, obviously. Yeah, to keep this ability alive. And the more armor you're given, the less effective the ability is, but the less armor you're given, the more ridiculous the ability can be.
Okay.
It's a whole risk and reward
Yes.
system. So yeah, it's cool. Like there's so much. Like I can talk. There are so many changes in this game. I can talk about it forever, but I don't know how much of it's going to change over time. So for now, I think it's such a solid start for the sequel that I think, a lot of people are like, oh, why are we getting a Hades 2? Which is a fair question. Like Supergiant has never made a sequel. This is the very first sequel they've ever made. Like they made Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, and then Hades. And like this is the one they decided to make a sequel on. And out of all of them, I think it's the smartest one to make a sequel on. But they're also not just making a sequel just because. This is like such a rethinking of how the first game worked, but without losing all of what made that game so interesting. So yeah, there's a lot of cool like crafting stuff in your base, because now obviously when you die, you go back to your base. So you've got these like Arcana cards that you can activate instead of having your mirror that gave you permanent upgrades. And you've got each Arcana card is got like a cost associated with it. So you can only have a certain amount active at a time. So you've got to balance like which Arcana cards do you take? How does that work with your build? There's a lot of slots for weapons. There were just 2 in the technical test, but I saw slots for like 8.
I know.
And then there's also tools that you can use to mine resources during a run, but you can only take one tool at a time. So you got to choose like, what am I prioritizing this run? What am I looking for? It's good, man. It's all the little like things to tickle your brain of like, this is what a roguelite should be, and this is why this is considered like up there, some of the best roguelite ever. So
I'm here for it. Hades 1. It's funny because I think back to Hades 1, and that was the thing of, I knew Supergiant games. I saw their new game Hades go into early access. I was like, I'm going to wait. I'll wait for that to get full release. That game launched and I put a lot of time into it. I mean, I finished it, unlocked all the weapons, did some of the, what do they call it when you like up the difficulty? You like basically you
like
take
the heat mode or something like
the different
that.
heat. So you take debuffs essentially, or your enemies get buffed, and it raises the heat level. And then you got to do runs like that, because every time you do a run like that, you unlocked a unique resource that you use to do more stuff with. And it was just like I could not stop playing that game. So I'm here for a sequel, and I get it. Like it's, Supergiant never make sequels, but I don't know. Hades was big enough and made a big enough splash that I think it kind of deserves a sequel. I mean, if you think of the games that came before Hades, all really good, don't get me wrong, but none of them had the same sort of mainstream splash, I don't think. Whereas I feel Hades has been, it's on everything and everywhere. And I mean, even the other day, I pinged our Discord, I was like, hold up, when did Hades get a mobile version? Like, this is crazy. It's free on Netflix games on mobile.
It's literally everywhere.
Yeah,
it's literally everywhere.
Now.
Yeah.
So it's definitely got like a more mainstream appeal, I think.
For sure. And I think a lot of what made the original Hades so captivating as well was that they figured out how to tell a story in this 100%. Format of a game.
Yeah.
Because like so many roguelites don't. Like the story is window dressing, but this is like, no, it's got a narrative through line. Like you had to beat the first Hades like 10 times to eventually get the
actual
credits essentially of it. So I wonder if now with that expectation in mind, because that was never expected of a roguelite, like there's going to be more scrutiny on Hades 2 to deliver an as interesting of a story. And I can't say for certain if that's going to be the case here, because I'm only getting the sort of first act of the story, this sort of introduction to the main conflict. But I can say that most of the characters, at least in this test, are brand new characters, and they are all super cool to like talk to and listen to, and they've got the right balance of quirky and funny and serious, and they're just cool. So like every time I die, I'm going to talk to everyone and seeing what else they have to say, and the way it's adapting to my runs and responding to my runs is still super novel to me. Like
but I mean even like you've mentioned the Hades one, that did something that was never seen before. the fact that you could just keep playing and go on and on and on, and there was like no duplicate dialogue ever.
Yeah.
Like not even once. You wonder, how the hell do they do this? Like what's going on in the back end there that they've accounted for, you know, the player's going to do 10, 20, 30, 100 runs, whatever it is, and there's just always going to be a fresh set of dialogue that's somewhat in context to whatever you've done. I mean, and I kind of feel that if a roguelite doesn't do that now, then it's, you know, it kind of needs to. Because Hades has set that bar, and it's just, maybe it's an unfair bar, but they've definitely done that.
No, 100%. I agree with you. I mean, I think Dead Cells over time eventually incorporated a lot of story stuff into it, because it had story, but it was never as explicit as Hades.
Nowhere near on the same level as Hades.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone has done it as expertly as Hades, because like you said, there was no duplication. It didn't feel like you ever saw the gears working behind to make this thing work, which made it so fascinating, because you're constantly wondering, how is this possible? How have they managed this? And I think the same is going to go for you. I mean, there were times where I was like wondering out loud, like, wait, how would you have recorded that voice line so specific to something that happened in my run? You know what I mean? Like, surely you must have recorded so many things for so many eventualities. It's just nuts that they've put this much work into it. Yeah. So it's cool that sort of that spell that it puts over you for that hasn't worn off, and I'm very glad for that. Yeah
I'm very keen to play it when it does actually launch in a year or two.
Yeah,
whenever the hell that is.
I suspect, I mean, I don't know, they must have learnt a lot from their first early access run, but that lasted 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. It was almost to the day. So I don't know. They do tease at the end of this test that when they do go into early access, there will be a lot more content.
Nice.
So that makes me wonder whether they have like another whole act like ready to go, which would be a lot more than what launched with the original Hades. So but I don't think they're going to rush it. Like there's no reason for them to rush it. So yeah, within a year or two it will be done, and hey, maybe by then there'll be a switch to OLED, and that will look real good on that.
Then they'll announce Hades 3. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm there for it. You actually play as Hades now, finally.
Or they just call it Zagreus 1.
Yeah, Zagreus 1, yes.
They
Zagreus
just come out,
is the final boss
it's going to
now.
be the first game of a sequel. There's going to be... I'm very keen to play it. I'm there for it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, a lot of the time when I was playing, I'm like, Matty is going to eat this up. This is just like the perfect thing for him to just completely like absorb in, you know, just overthink builds and completely break it. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you do in that game.
Cannot wait. I should go back to Hades 1. I've probably forgotten how to play it. Muscle memory. Hey, we spoke about it at the top of the show and it's come back.
I pop into it every now and then, and I surprise myself how far I can get on a run just like without having touched it for like months. It's still
game.
So good. It's
you have
still
not played
so
Hades. Good. It's on mobile.
One of the best games ever made.
Play it. It's just really good. Yeah.
Also, while you're there, just play a lot of Supergiant's other games. A lot of them on mobile as well. Like Bastion is still top tier. Transistor is really cool, I think. Pyre is weird, but cool as well. But like, Supergiant doesn't miss, I don't think.
No.
Yeah.
Cool. That's Hades.
Cool. Do you want to chat about anything? I feel like I spoke a lot and you did not.
No, look, I've played a lot of Final Fantasy Rebirth.
Give me a rundown of what you've enjoyed so far.
Let me just.
I mean, I know you want to keep it for a big spoiler cast, but like.
Oh, not really for a spoiler cast. It's more. I'd want to give it like an official review / discussion when I've hit credits, because this is the kind of game where I've seen people go like, "Oh, I don't know about the ending." I'm like, "Shit! Like, what is going on with the ending here?" But I can tell you that I've played. I think last I checked, 86 hours. I'm on chapter 12.
That's a lot.
Of 14, I think, in total. So I'm very close to the end. But to be clear, like I've played 86 hours because I'm doing everything. Like I'm leaving no stone unturned. I'm doing every single side quest. I'm playing every mini game. You best believe every Queen's Blood opponent I see, I'm out there. I'm playing them. Every Chocobo race of the Gold Saucer, I'm out there doing it, and I'm just having a blast. Like I think I said it a few weeks ago when that we were both like early days in the game. But I spend most of my time just going, I can't believe this game exists. It's for newcomers, don't get me wrong, you'll love this game, you'll inhale it, it's really good. But for somebody who grew up on Final Fantasy VII in its heyday, just seeing the level of love and care and just the small details that have been poured into this game, it's mind blowing. Like I could sit here for hours as we're just talking, but like, can you believe this scene that had this song play, which is a reference to this, whatever. It's like small little things like that, and just when they happen, you're just like, wow, this game was made for me. It's just been nothing but joy for me, and I'm going to be very sad to roll credits. Interestingly, I wasn't sure how the third game would be. I was like, I don't know what sort of content, like I don't know, I still don't know where the story stops here. Like I have an idea, I mean I think we all have an idea of where it ends, but I don't actually know.
I'm pretty sure you know where it stops.
And I thought, but when they hit that point, what happens with the next game? But I have an idea, and I'm like, oh yes, they could go there, do this and that. It's like it makes a lot more sense how they've broken down this game. And like I take my hat off to this team. I think we all were wondering, like, okay, cool, Final Fantasy Remake, you did Midgar very well. That's one part of a huge world map. How do you translate this to an open world? And I think there is, I won't avert my eyes from like bloatware stuff. Like, if you're in open world, you've got to activate towers and do, checklist stuff. But even that said, I've just had fun doing all of it. I'm amazed that I'm at a point in time when there is an actual remake of Final Fantasy VII, a trilogy, and the second part did the open world so well. So I'll definitely talk about it when I've rolled credits, and I can tell you if all this good will has been thrown out the window because the ending sucked. Maybe
I highly doubt that's going to happen for you. I think at most you could be like, okay, I see where they're going with that ending. I mean, if you're disappointed by it, I can see where they're going and it didn't really land, but I'm curious to see how they follow through with it in the third one. That's where I suspect you'll end up being. Or you'll actually appreciate the ending. I'm not sure. Yeah. I have no idea what happens in the ending.
Same.
I have an idea of what might, but I don't know. I'm just guessing.
I think we're all going and going, yes, they're going to end on this scene. I mean, if you should know what scene we're talking about.
I'm almost certain it's going to be that scene.
I don't actually know what if that scene A happens or B what happens in that moment.
My gut feels that it doesn't play out the way you suspect, obviously, and which would make sense given the events of the first, remake. So, yeah. We'll see. I'm not as enamored with the open world as you are. I mean, we've spoken about this a bunch. So I'm kind of not mainlining, but focusing more on the sort of things that I enjoy in that open world rather than trying to get everything ticked off, because I just think, I get that they wanted to make this game feel as grand and big as it does, and it does. Like, I think the open worlds, the little hubs, feel really cool to explore, but I just think a lot of it is so much fluff, and
I know
the stuff that is fluff that I enjoy is cool. Like Queen's Blood is fucking awesome. I think it's one of the coolest mini games ever. I acknowledge. I think there is a lot of fluff, 100%, but it is, to me, it's offset by. I mean, where are you in the story now? Like, which city are you in? I mean, I'm in what's the one at the J?
Junon.
That's the one. I haven't. I'm in the Junon open world-ish region, so I got the chocobos that can walk up walls. They're pretty cool.
But even just those hubs, like you've been to Calm, obviously. I mean, again, I've mentioned this, but in the original game, Calm's just this quiet throwaway town with the square and 6 buildings. And in this game, it's just this bustling, busy, very busy little town. And that is this game through every other hub. It just feels like I think like and I can't wait to get to Gongaga, for example. Like that's Zach's hometown. Like it's just like it was a quite throwaway place in the original, and here it's like this big place. I'm like, oh my god, they've done this for every little location. Just it's outstanding, I think. But
yeah, and I'll give them credit, like in terms of, you know, maybe a lot of the stuff you do in the open world is a bit of fluff, but the actual detail to the open world is like quite incredible.
I think you could mainline this game. I mean, I think I've checked like how long to beat. I think you could mainline it. It's still long, don't get me wrong, it's still like 40 to 50 hours, but I think if you don't stop to, you know, engage with the open world stuff, you'll have a pretty similar experience to Remake, where it is more, I mean, Remake had side quests, don't get me wrong, but it was for the most part like kind of linear-ish, you know, you just playing through a lot of story beats and cinematics. So I think you can still get that out of this game if you do choose to like not engage with the open world stuff. So
yeah, and I think that's what I'm going to start like probably gravitating towards, because I don't want to get like 30 hours in and then feel burnt out on it and not like see it through. Like remake took like me about 40 something hours, and I did most of the side stuff, but I also was like, why am I doing a lot of the side stuff as well? And I think because of the scale of this one, it's just like if I follow that same mindset, it's just too much, you know what I mean? So
I know it's
because the actual story stuff, the story missions, I'm enjoying a lot. I think they're really good.
Yeah.
And I'm there for the characters, man. They're just such a cool crew to hang out with. They're real fun. Yeah.
It's a good time. We'll check back on that in future when I've actually rolled credits.
Shouldn't be long now.
Say that I probably Umar said he rolled credits at what, like 110 hours, I think it was.
I think it was around there. It was definitely 100 and something. I don't think it was like high.
Yeah, you go like, I'm close to the end, then I do the maths and I'm like, hang on, then it's like 20, 25 hours still.
Yeah.
If I'm ticking off all this stuff.
Could be. I think he ended up doing like everything. So yeah.
I'm already having the discussion of internally of like, do I platinum this game? I'm gonna roll credits and then see, you know, what's outstanding. I know there'll be a trophy for finishing it in hard mode, which I did with the remake.
Is there? Oh, did they do it again?
It's such a but it's a thing of then, okay, I don't have to do all the side quests. I can mainline it.
But it's still so much. It's so long.
Okay, can I tell you, I completely get that sentiment, except our platinum remake and hard mode in that game it's a shame that that's not kind of what the experience is from the get-go, because then you really, really dive into the combat. You've got to pay attention to, you know, specific builds and elements, and it really shines. Like, I'm always grateful that I did play it on hard mode to see that side of the game. So that's what's pulling me. I'm like, I'm enjoying the game, but I know that there's going to be more in hard mode. So I'll see. I don't know. I'll see when I finish it where I am.
I mean, I think that will probably be even more profound here, because I think the combat system here is so much more complex and interesting. And I think you only really get, well, at least in my experience, you only really get to dig into a lot of the, what are they called? Synergy abilities? The ones where you like, mostly on boss fights, because like smaller skirmishes just don't last long enough for you to use them. So yeah, I suspect like a hard mode will be far more involved in making that a way more important facet to like every single battle, which probably make the combat sing a little more.
Yeah, it's a good game though. Absolutely enjoying it.
It is a good game. Good game, good looking game as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's pretty much all I have. Do we have questions? No?
No.
Yes?
Didn't put out any question tweets.
Oh, okay. That's fun. Can
do it again in future.
It's all good. You can always just send questions though. 100%. I mean, we'll pick it up a month from now. Who knows? Maybe it'll be 2 weeks. Maybe it'll be one. Who knows?
Don't know.
This is the slice of life. You just got to send it when you can. Unless you're driving, don't send an email while driving.
No.
You can send a voice note. but don't send an email while driving.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
What a way to celebrate 250. Wow, 250 episodes of Checkpoint Chat. That's crazy. It's just like kind of mental to think about.
Quite a little milestone. My goodness.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk?
Jeez. Quarter way to 1,000. If we ever do get there, I suspect we'll be like 50 years old or something.
We'll be ancient.
Exactly.
6 years it took us a really long time to get to 250 because I still think you mentioned it on 246 or 245, something about like, oh, we're getting up onto 250, and that was in like Jan.
And that's when we stopped doing it weekly, and suddenly, all of a sudden, getting those last four took like 2 months.
Getting a bit busy. Yeah. We're gonna slow down the cadence.
Yeah, listen, life has not got any less busy. So,
No.
But I am quite enjoying being able to, like if we were still doing weekly, I don't even know what I talk about half the time because like for a long time we were both just playing Final Fantasy, and then like I'll get one game here or there or this and that, like, or feel the need to continue jumping between games to have something to talk about.
Yeah.
So, because I mean we got code for Rise of the Ronin, which we haven't even redeemed. We got something else.
Still a Blade.
Can't even remember.
Still a Blade.
Oh, that was this week. Yeah,
it's chilling in the wings.
Just waiting
at some stage.
Yeah. It's just like, don't feel the need to like have to play everything that's coming out because it's like impossible. Maybe if we had like 3 other people on this podcast, it would be a lot easier. But for 2 people, it's just not feasible.
Much,
let's rope in Darryn. Let's do it finally.
Just do not have Darryn type.
Oh, fucking hell, Jesus. I've never been more triggered about something in my life. I just
Darryn. Forget the caps lock and shift.
Why do you want to defend him?
Forget the caps lock and shift bonanza, okay? But the whole index finger typing, I'm there with my homie.
No, but I've seen you type. You don't type like that.
No, but I mean, it's predominantly, I don't use like a typing stance.
I mean, you use like 3 fingers on each hand, correct?
Yeah, I guess. But I mean,
so that's already 2 more on each hand than he does.
Yeah, but it's mostly my index finger, though. Index fingers.
I mean, of course it's... most people are mostly their index finger. Darryn is exclusively his index finger. There's a very big difference.
Whatever. Point is, I've never done like... What do you call it? Like, is it a stance? Or is it like when you have a typist's thing?
Oh,
like,
listen, I don't know. I don't know what it's called. I don't... Listen, when I first started typing, and this is when I first started writing in games, I had horrendous typing. Like, I was typing like Darryn was, with single index, whatever, but obviously much slower. And then naturally, you just progress to using more fingers because you get way more comfortable with the keyboard. And I can't fathom in my head that after 10 plus years of doing this, you just never migrated to that step. Like,
listen.
Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's fine that it works for him. I just don't understand how.
No,
how did this happen?
I was more confused by the whole caps lock shift thing of like that baffled me.
So I mentioned this at work. I'm in a pretty our work is like segmented into a lot of places. We've got a lot of people now, so the office is quite cramped. So it's like 3 or 4 of us devs got moved into a room that was predominantly just for the marketing team. We have very interesting conversations in that room now. And I mentioned this just out aloud to the room, and I was like, I have this friend. He only the other day discovered that you can hold shift to, capitalize the letter. Yeah. He's just been using caps lock. They all pop up. They're like, we had this exact conversation last week with one of the girls there, Rebecca, who's actually a good friend of mine, because she didn't know that shift did this. And I was like, how the fuck is this possible? How were there more people like this? I had to remove myself from that situation. I had to just leave the room because I couldn't have this conversation again. I just needed, when I brought it up, I wanted support, not vindication for people with this affliction.
It is funny though. I was saying it just this week in my office as well. I can't remember what we were talking about, But this thing of, I mean, you remember growing up, your parents saying like, oh, it's because we're talking about AR. Like, AR is exciting, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of it that's like, I don't know, like I don't understand it, so it's a bit scary. So I'm like, I feel just like my parents, like when phones were coming more mainstream, whatever, and it is hilarious where I'm like, I'm that old person now, and there's the youths of today going like, oh, like you old man, like AR, come on, don't be that way. But on the flip side of that, it is things where you and I take for granted, like we grew up PC gaming and typing, like we've both got journalist backgrounds, so we've obviously, like, we know our way around the keyboard, whereas we live in a generation, the younger generation are like growing up on smartphones. So
yeah,
the problem is Darryn did not grow up with that generation, so I don't know where this anomaly comes from, but
I mean, he's older than us. Let's not forget the fact that he is not significantly, but he is a few years older than us. Like,
it's great.
There's no excuse. There's
So
no excuse
let us
for
know
this.
if you use caps lock or shift in the comments below.
Fucking hell.
Love it.
I just love how it will be 9 p.m. at night. No one is on Discord. But Darryn will come in with this bullshit stance. And everyone is on Discord suddenly. Everyone is like, this is absolute nonsense. How is this possible?
It's the best.
We attack him for his food crumbs. But this is on another level. It broke my brain in such a way that I
love to see it.
And again, I don't care. Like, I don't care that he does it that way. It's just the fact that he didn't know that it hurts me at a fundamental level, and I don't know why.
Just
need help.
Need help.
I need help. Anyway, I know he's going to listen to this. He's probably laughing his ass off, so I'm glad to have produced that at least.
I'll defend you.
Yeah, definitely do. Like, I will one day gift you a keyboard without caps lock and see what happens, but
my God. Keyboard
they make those.
Keyboard without a shift key, you'll be absolutely fine.
I mean, they make those too. They make keyboards with like literally a 40% layout. There's fucking nothing on that keyboard.
That's too little.
Where's your guard now?
It's too little. That's like where
it's too little. It's
that
ridiculous.
size, the actual letters from the alphabet are missing on that keyboard.
I mean, at that size, the space bar is like the size of your tab button. It's ridiculous.
No, that's too little.
It's way too little. No, I agree. 100%
Space bar
agree.
has to be at least 10% of the keyboard. This is the law.
No. Listen, I'm a keyboard freak, but I'm not that freakish. Like that's a whole nother level. Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
on that note,
it's been on that rant. Yeah, it's been episode 250. I nearly said 255. That would have been funny. 250 of Checkpoint Chat. As always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for putting up with our sporadic release schedule, if you still are. And we'll be back, I think, relatively soon once Matty has wrapped up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So, yeah, if you do have questions about that game, just send them through because, yeah, we'll be covering that very, very, very soon. Cool. But until then, hope everyone's keeping well. Hope you are well. And I hope you continue keeping that way till we speak next time.
Cool. Bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.